Now, the central bank has announced a number of measures to extend credit relief facilities to individuals and organizations in the spirit of creating a buffer against the possible community spread of COVID-19 coronavirus. Now, how exactly will this work? Who are the beneficiaries? And what are the various packages on offer? Well, to find out about all of this, we're going to be talking to Mr. Johnson Chukwu, the Chief Executive Officer of Cowry Asset Management Ltd. Welcome to the program, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yes, welcome.
Everybody greeted me a cool what?
I greeted you as a cool corona. Because that's a big issue. And the central bank has at last responded with a number of measures to provide 5 options, actually. Liquidity backstops, and to see how credit can be available to businesses and households as part of measures to contain the impact of coronavirus. Now, what's your assessment of those monetary policy options and interventions that have been announced by the central bank?
My take is that anything is better than nothing. I mean, we've seen since the coronavirus outbreak became a pandemic, that the government of the country has not really come up with definitive policy positions. So for the first time, we have the monetary authorities coming out with some initiatives to try to manage the implications of the coronavirus on the economy. So in as much as some of them may not have pervasive effects on the economy, or may not as causing the implications or the impact of the crisis we're witnessing today as much as some of us would wish, but at least it's a step in the right direction. We are seeing somebody thinking that we should do something and is taking definitive policy positions on what should be done. So if you look at some of those policies, the issue of extending the moratorium on CBN intervention funds or intervention loans by 1 year simply meant that they recognize that some business operators will struggle in the next 1 year because we are seeing a slowdown in economic activity, not just in Nigeria, globally. They've also reduced the interest rate on CBN intervention facilities from 9% to 5%, which means the cost of such borrowing to such people who are enjoying already subsidized credits will further reduce, and the timeline for them to pay back, which also means that the capital outlay they need to set aside every now and then to pay their loans will also moderate. That is taking into cognizance, like I said, that the economy is going to suffer some level of slowdown, and business operators may not generate enough cash flow to meet their loan prepayment obligations. The central bank went further to also advise the deposit money banks to allow some level of accommodation to their borrowers, and by saying that the central bank will grant some level of forbearance to deposit money banks as it relates to loans that are granted to their customers. What the central bank is basically saying is, look, some of these loans may show signs of weaknesses. We're not going to compel you to provide for them because we know that these businesses are going through tough times. So we'll allow you to grant these customers who are unable to meet their repayment obligations on a timely basis some level of accommodation. We're not going to force you to adhere to the prudential guidelines as specified in the CBN policies. There are other aspects that the central bank said they want to set aside about 50 billion naira for intervention, which will be granted through, disbursed through NICEL to most affected families and businesses. These are small-scale families and businesses. I believe that's one is what will be difficult to implement because I'm just looking at what will be the basis for qualification to access such intervention funds. But there are still other areas that I think either the fiscal authorities have to come up boldly to tell us how they want to respond to them, or because some of them might go beyond what the monetary authorities can actually handle.
You've gone through items 1, 2, 3, and 5 of that 6-point policy paper. What's your comment on item 4, credit support for healthcare industry, which I personally think is a good initiative because of the peculiarities of this current crisis. It's a health crisis. And also item 6, strengthening of CBN's LDR policy.
Okay, let's take the item 4, which is credit support to the healthcare sectors. They said they are going to provide some support to pharmaceutical industries so that they can actually access input of gate funding at lower cost. They will provide credit support to health institutions that want to scale up and provide some level of support in the management of COVID-19. I want to believe that there are some tertiary healthcare institutions that are owned by the private sector that may need some level of subsidy if they have to provide their facilities for managing the COVID-19 crisis. Because you remember, these are private institutions, they are not public institutions. So they may not ordinarily want to provide their facilities, irrespective of the fact that they may have the competence and the resources to manage them. We have some high-end health care institutions in places like Lagos and Abuja, owned by the private sector, but they operate on a profit basis. So if they have intervened in a public health management issue, I think they need some support, and I think that's where the central bank's position will be very valid. Then the last aspect as a lender of last resort, that's what you refer to. You remember that what is happening, which I said, look, the issues at stake go beyond the monetary authorities. Eventually, you're going to see that the state governments, the subnationals, the local governments, and to some extent the federal government will find it difficult to meet their recurrent obligations in the coming months. So the central bank is saying, I stand ready as a lender of last resort, as a banker to the government, to provide some level of accommodation to the federal government and maybe to some extent to the state government in the event that as a result of the slowdown in crude oil sales, as a result of the crash in crude oil prices, their earnings from federation allocation is not enough to meet their obligations, particularly the payment of salaries. I think that's what the central bank is saying. And I think we have to come as a country, the bureaucracy of this country has to come and articulate clearly how they want to respond to that issue, because it's a looming crisis that we seem to be hiding our head in the sand and hoping that it will blow over us. There is no way the 3 tiers of government will meet their salary payment obligations in the coming months, because at Brent crude price of $30, it dropped to $29. The earnings from crude sales, remember that even the GMD of NNP said, look, we are not even able to find market for about 50 cargo of our April production. We are not able to find market for our 50 cargo of April production. So it simply means you are facing a double whammy. You are not able to get enough revenue from the volume you are selling, and you are not even able to sell as much as you are producing. So clearly, you're going to see a crash in the allocation, federation allocation that will come in the subsequent months. To the extent that I believe the state government will not be able to pay the wage bill of their employees. So how do you want to manage that? Government has not come. Unfortunately, we don't have anything left in the excess crude account. We should have been as a moderating...
we still have $71 million.
How much is $71 million?
A drop in the ocean.
Absolutely. But how sustainable would you say these rates that the CBN are giving are? Because, I mean, if we look at the fact that their intervention rates are actually lower than their inflation rates, does that mean that the CBN is eventually going to end up taking a hit on these loans?
You see, what the central bank is doing is to subsidize lending to some critical sectors of the economy. Manufacturing, agriculture, entertainment industry. They say they want to extend that to the healthcare industry. So what they basically do is that they said, look, there are some sectors of the economy that by the nature of their output, they may not be able to compete with other institutions in accessing commercial credits at commercial market rates. So we're going to give them money at subsidized rates to enable them to produce more cost efficiently. And it simply means that those people are enjoying subsidy. We are collectively subsidizing them. But what the central bank is even saying that, look, even with that subsidy at 9%, with what is going on now, we are seeing outside this country, I mean, we have not actually been hit by the coronavirus. So you need to look at what's happening outside in other parts of the world. Italy is shut down completely. The US is moving towards, they're going to restrict interstate movement. People can't even get basic groceries at supermarkets in the US. So there's complete disruption of logistic supply, logistic facilities globally. And it then means that consumer demand is going to crash. So whatever you produce, you're not going to find market for it. If we all have to withdraw back to our homes, certainly our consumption level will drop. And they expect that businesses will suffer some slowdown in their sales as a result of people pulling back to only preserve for essentials. And simply means that if you have a slowdown in your sales, you will not be able to generate enough cash flow to meet your debt payment obligations, your interest payment, your loan repayment. And the central bank say, look, this loan that you're paying 9%, we're going to bring it down to 5%, so that the burden of interest payment will reduce this further. And then the period you have to pay back this loan, we're going to extend it by 1 year. That's a 1 year moratorium. So that the amount you pay per month or per quarter will actually reduce because of that extension in tenor. And that hopefully will fit into your cash flow realities.
Well, I mean, you made a point earlier on about how states are also likely to be affected. And you raised a question you didn't answer. You said, how will states also manage this challenge? On this program, we've talked a lot about how Lagos State government has been proactive. What should those states, those other states, what should they do?
Interesting. Well, if a Lagos State government you just mentioned, Lagos State government is in a very unique position. Lagos State government, a couple of years back, prepared for the rain before the rainy season. Lagos State is just one of the few states in the country that has enough internally generated revenue as to meet its basic obligations. Most other states do not have that. It has happened on them, and it's, for me, it's time to start building, though, like the Chinese say that the best time to plant a tree was yesterday, the next best time is now. So the states have to restructure. I've been an approach that an apostle that the state government must restructure their finances such that their internally generated revenue is enough to meet their overhead. Then whatever comes from federation allocation goes to capital expenditure. So until you have that structure, you are certainly living on borrowed times. Because what you basically do, you go to cap a hand to the federal government every month to get allocation, and when you come back, you just use it to pay salaries. That is not governance.
Yeah.
And until we have that restructuring, then the government will now begin to evolve policies that will encourage economic activities within their states. In other countries in the world, state government will go out there to attract investors. They will build infrastructure to support investment in their states so that they will end up earning revenue from tax on those institutions that will sustain the
Thank you,
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Johnson Chukwu. Always a pleasure to have you on the morning show.